Taoiseach, as you know, there is looming chaos in our capital city due to the inability of the Fine Gael Labour-led City Council to organise fair and effective refuse collection. And despite the mirth of some of the government backbenchers, this problem has a huge potential from a health hazard point of view and an environmental point of view to do enormous damage. And I don't know if it has struck the government the huge problem that will arise if up to a quarter of the refuse of this city isn't collected.
And my understanding is... Thank you. Silence, please. Thank you.
And my understanding is that there are some people who have not had waste collections for the last 6 weeks. And in reality, the problems that we're now confronted with should have been foreseen by the Council before they took the decision on privatisation. And I have to say that it's not good enough of the government to wash their hands of this matter. And can I ask you, has the Minister met with the majority parties and Dublin City Council to bang heads together to get this problem dealt with? And the second question I'd have is, has the Minister examined his powers under the legislation to deal with this issue, which is now becoming an emergency, in view of the fact that Dublin City Council seem incapable of resolving this matter? And I was wondering, could you give me clear answers on both of those questions?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Well, this is a matter for the management of Dublin City Council. The Taoiseach replied to questions on this a couple of days ago, and the Minister for the Environment responded to a topical issue question that was raised here on the subject, I think, yesterday.
The day before.
The day before yesterday. The position is that there is a problem affecting about 18,000 households in Dublin out of the total of 140,000 households who have a refuse collection service. The Minister's view, which I support and which I echo, is that the company concerned should be flexible in relation to the requirement for people to pay the upfront charge. I understand that they have made it clear that for households who are former Dublin City customers, that they can pay in 2 moieties. But the view of the government is that the company concerned should be flexible. I think they should be mindful of the fact that there are other options open to householders in a competitive waste collection market. I think they should also be mindful of the position of the government, which is stated in the programme for government, which is that we are considering the introduction of an arrangement whereby there would be a tendering process for waste collection services in local authorities. There was a public consultation in relation to that aspect of the issue, which concluded in September. The Minister published the submissions which were made and commentary on them, and it is a matter that will be considered by government. I think there does need to be a sensible approach taken here. There is a transition from the Dublin City Council to a private company for the collection of waste. Those kind of transitions always are difficult and have problems associated with them. And I think that, in particular, the company involved in this particular situation, I think, does need to exercise some flexibility with the former Dublin City Council customers and now the households that are to be their new customers.
Thank you. Deputy O'Keefe.
I think, Taoiseach, that you know very well that the company has made it absolutely clear that they're not going to be flexible and that they're not going to collect the 18,000 bins that would have to be collected every week. And I think it's a bit disingenuous of you to say that you're just going to stand back while the city gets overcome by a huge amount of rubbish that's uncollected. And there is a serious health hazard, and the government has a responsibility for public health, and therefore to wash your hands of this issue, I think, as I said, is disingenuous. And I would also point out to you that we're a month away from St. Patrick's Day, when thousands and thousands of people from home and abroad will visit this city. And we want our city at such times to be a showcase to the world. And I think that due to the ineptitude of the government and of the government parties who control Dublin City Council, that it is unfortunate, quite likely, that what will be said by our visitors when they leave Ireland is they'll refer to Dublin as dear old dirty Dublin. Now, we don't want that. And I'm asking you once again, other than...
Sorry. Put your question, please, Deputy.
Other than pious platitudes, what action does the Minister, who has ultimate responsibility for local government, what action does he intend taking to deal with this issue and to make sure that this city is not made a cesspool with waste?
Thank you.
With waste, and that the health hazard issue is dealt with, and whether the Minister of Health is going to deal with the health hazard issue.
Taoiseach.
Well, Cancor, I'm not going to take any lecture from Deputy O'Keefe in relation to issues relating to pollution and waste. A deputy who spent the last number of months going around the country encouraging people not to pay a modest charge for the registration of their septic tanks. Now, the position in relation to this is quite clear, as I have said. There is a transition which has been taking place between Dublin City Council and a private company for the collection of waste in Dublin. There is an issue now which affects 18,000 of the 140,000 householders concerned. It is a problem. It does have to be dealt with. The position of the Minister for the Environment is absolutely clearly known to Dublin City Council, to the company and to the public, not least because he made it clear here in the House, and that is that in this period of transition there should be flexibility, and the company concerned needs to exercise that flexibility. Clearly, the government's policy position in relation to waste services in the period ahead is set down in the programme for government. The company concerned is aware of that. There are other options that can be pursued if the company concerned does not show the flexibility that is required to ensure that there is a collection service for the householders of Dublin and that there is a reasonable arrangement made for the payment of the charges.
Thank you. Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald.
I want to ask you today about the plight of residents of Priory Hall. More than 250 residents are in temporary accommodation since they were evacuated by a court order on October the 14th last. So that's well over 100 days now. Taoiseach, are you aware that despite the fact that the evacuated residents of Priory Hall have been out of their homes for several months, that your colleague, Minister for the Environment, Phil Hogan, still refuses to meet with them? Do you agree that the plight of the residents has been compounded by a decision of the management of Dublin City Council to appeal the High Court ruling requiring the Council to assist them with their emergency housing needs? That appeal, Taoiseach, is before the Supreme Court for mention this morning. Your party, and indeed Fine Gael, have repeatedly and correctly criticised the policies and the neglect that led to the property bubble, lax planning, lax building and fire safety regulations and enforcement. The Priory Hall evacuees were failed by the state on all these grounds and are still failed by the state. Do you recall that the reason the residents were evacuated was because Priory Hall did not comply with fire safety and was a danger to their lives? And this week, Taoiseach, marks the 31st anniversary of the Stardust tragedy in this city, which should be a constant reminder to all of us of the terrible consequences of neglect of fire safety. So, Taoiseach, will the government now take this matter in hand? Will the Environment Minister Phil Hogan meet with the residents? And will he help to coordinate the search for a solution involving all of those concerned? The Minister himself, the residents, Dublin City Council and the banks.
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
The Priory Hall residents were failed in the first instance by a Sinn Féin developer.
Sorry, could I... No. Have some order, please. Order. Would you resume your seat? Resume your seat. Could I reply to the Deputy's question, please?
No, I will not withdraw. The Priory Hall residents were failed by a developer who, when Sinn Féin was going respectable, pulled on an Armani suit like so many others. And in this particular case, constructed a development which has left these people out of their homes. And there's nobody in this House who doesn't feel the deepest sympathy for the residents in Priory Hall. A terrible thing has happened there, that people who bought their homes with hard-earned money and invested their hopes and futures in that building, that they were not fit for purpose. Now, efforts are being made by different people to find the best outcome for the households concerned. I met with the representatives of the residents. My colleague, the Minister for Housing and Planning, Minister Jan O'Sullivan, has met with the residents and is working to find a solution of this problem. Options on accommodation were discussed and assessed, but until there are final agreements, it is too early to say what the result will be without causing further confusion and anxiety. There are also Supreme Court proceedings, which, as Deputy MacDonald says, are due to be up for mention today, which will adjudicate on a number of issues, and obviously it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment further on that until the courts finish their business. The Dublin City Council, I understand, sought an early hearing on the matter of its appeal to the Supreme Court against the order of the High Court that the Council meet the costs of the alternative accommodation required for the evacuated residents. The issue in the appeal is whether the High Court was entitled to make orders under Section 23 of the Fire Safety Act 1981, requiring the Council to pay the costs incurred by the residents. The order to pay such costs has serious implications for the taxpayer and for the City Council in its role as a fire authority. The overriding priority in relation to the overall situation at Priory Hall is to ensure that the best outcome for the households concerned, and to facilitate as early as possible a return to their own homes. In this respect, it will be necessary to ensure that these homes are made fit for purpose, and that the costs of doing so should fall where they should. The Minister for the Environment has asked Dublin City Council to do all within its powers to achieve the objective, and has asked his department to continue to liaise closely with the City Council in this regard.
Thank you. Deputy MacDonald to reply, please.
Taoiseach, you know, dodging answering questions with that kind of inaccurate waffle that you delivered at the beginning of your response is really very unedifying for you. Can I also say it's a bit ironic?
Sorry, the Deputy is entitled to reply.
That the man who lectures on respectability comes from an outfit that was very close to North Korea and was quite adept at running off dodgy fivers. So remember your own past too, Taoiseach, if you might. You haven't answered the question
Sorry, could I have some order, please, to the Deputy? Could I have some order, please?
You haven't answered the question as to why Minister Phil Hogan refuses to meet with these residents. You say that your priority is, and that there is an urgency around making these homes safe, and I agree with you, but there's no signal of urgency on the part of your government. And could I say to you, Taoiseach, that it contrasts very starkly with the urgency with which you moved a statutory instrument to award over €17,000 extra to the Minister for Housing for the glory of her attending cabinet meetings, which was part of her job
have your question, Deputy, over time. Thank you.
So tell me please.
Sorry.
I want to know. I want to know when Minister Hogan will meet with the residents.
Sorry.
When Minister Hogan will meet with the residents concerned. I want to know what proactive strategy your government has to address the issues at hand. And much as with the previous question on the issue of waste management in this city, it's not acceptable for Minister Phil Hogan to simply take 2 steps back and wash his hands of these important matters. When will he meet the residents of Priory Hall? Can we have a straight answer to that?
The Minister for Housing, Minister O'Sullivan, has met with the residents of Priory Hall. She is actively involved in dealing with this with the City Council. She will meet again with them if that is necessary. The government does consider that the hugely difficult set of circumstances that the residents of Priory Hall have found themselves in as a result of the appalling actions of the developer of Priory Hall. That's where this problem. That's where. No. Hold on a second. Now.
Sorry, please. Would you allow the answer to the questions? Thank you.
We're
over time as it is.
The government is not going to carry the can for dodgy developers, irrespective of who they have been associated with. Well, you're closer to them than anybody in the government. Now, as far as this issue is concerned, the residents in this estate have a huge problem, and that is a problem that needs to be addressed. There is a court action which is related to it, and that obviously has to take its own course. In the meantime, the Minister for Housing, Minister O'Sullivan, is dealing with this issue. She has met with the residents. She will meet with them again. She is in touch with Dublin City Council on the issue, and the government will do everything it possibly can to get this issue resolved for the residents in this estate and get them back into their homes as quickly as possible. And get. No. That's Deputy MacDonald. You seem to be more interested in Minister Hogan and what he's doing than you are in the residents. The government is interested in getting the residents of this estate back into their homes as quickly as possible and getting those dealt with, and the Minister for Housing is dealing with that.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Joe Higgins, please.
Can I return to the lead item on many news programmes this morning, with the residents of our capital city being bullied and blackmailed by this private waste collection company, Greyhound, which, let us remember, has just had handed over to it a few weeks ago a major, crucial public service in our city. Taoiseach, can I ask you why you adopt this morning, when questioned about this, the demeanour of a previous Taoiseach who addressed questions about problems as if they existed on another planet? Can I ask you in particular, Taoiseach, if you will agree that, on the contrary, you in particular should feel this morning, as a result of this action, ashamed, diminished and humiliated? And the reason I ask about your sense of responsibility for this situation is because you are the leader of the Labour Party. Your party occupies the position of Lord Mayor of Dublin. Your party has 19 out of 52 councillors, by far the biggest group. You are also Taoiseach, Deputy Prime Minister of this state, and with your Fine Gael allies, you have a crushing majority on Dublin City Council. Now, in view of all that, Taoiseach,
question, please. Thank you.
Does it sit well with you that you have presided over the privatisation of this crucial public service, that you have handed it to a company which has taken its corporate centre to an offshore island so that it doesn't need to publish its profits?
We're over time, Deputy. Come on.
And to a company that can arrogantly treat the hard-pressed citizens of our capital city in this manner. Now, Taoiseach, finally, in view of this debacle, and that you are also acquiescing in a cringing fashion to the Troika demand of massive privatisations in our bigger public services and state agencies, does this now give you pause for thought?
Thank you.
Rather than creating further debacles? And what is the Labour Party going to do today to resolve this problem with regard to the people of Dublin and guarantee them a proper public service in an issue or in a way that local authorities did going back to Victorian days?
Taoiseach. Can I have the reply, please? Thank you.
I have no difficulty at all. I have no difficulty. I have no difficulty at all, Cancorla.
Deputy, please. Please.
I have no difficulty.
Thank you.
I have no difficulty at all, Cancorla, in discharging my responsibilities. But you know, Deputy Higgins, you have a bit of responsibility here yourself. You spent years going around this city encouraging people not to pay their charges to Dublin City Council and to the other local authorities. When no, I'll repeat it for you. Yeah, you spent years, Deputy Higgins. You spent You spent years encouraging people not to pay their bin charges to Dublin City Council and to other local authorities. As a consequence of which, Deputy Higgins, you undermined the viability of the service being provided by the local authorities, as a consequence of which the service ended up being privatised. I have always been amazed, Deputy Higgins, that when you were going around the city, and you and your mates encouraging people not to pay their charges to the City Council and to the County Councils, I never heard you arguing that they shouldn't pay their charges to the private collectors who were competing with the local authorities. You did more to undermine the service that was being provided, the public service that was being provided by the public authorities in Dublin than anybody else. And you shouldn't be surprised now. You shouldn't be surprised now that a consequence of that, and there's a consequence for your actions, Deputy Higgins. You shouldn't be surprised now that a consequence of that is that Dublin City Council and the other local authorities ended up privatising their services. Now, in respect of this particular privatisation and the transfer to a private company, yes, there have been very big problems in that transition, and we've seen that, and I've already said that there are 18,000 householders who are in difficulty with their waste collection service. That is being dealt with. The Minister for the Environment has made his position very clear on it. I made the government's position clear on it here this morning. That company should exercise flexibility at this point in time in respect of the collection of the waste and in respect of arrangements for the payment. I have also made it clear that in the event of that not happening, the government has indicated what its alternative approach will be in relation to the future of the waste collection service. So the government, Deputy Higgins, will discharge and is discharging its responsibilities in relation to this matter, and it's time that you took some responsibilities for your own actions and for the consequence of your role in the privatisation of the bin collection service in Dublin.
Deputy Higgins, 1 minute, thank you. Without interruption, please. Thank you. Would you mind, please? Would you mind? Hey. Deputy Ellis, would you please? Excuse me. Would you address matters through the chair, please? Thank you. Or else you can do it outside. No, but you have to learn to listen. Thank you. Could I have some deputies? Would you please allow the deputy his right to reply? Thank you. We live in a democracy, you know.
Taoiseach, I knew that you would try to divert the question in exactly the way you did. And therefore, I go back to what does...
Please, please, please. This is not funny, thank you.
I go back to what does not lie, which is the history of this issue. And there was a fresh-faced councillor in Dunleary in the 1980s who put out a statement that he was the first councillor in the country to propose and win the abolition of the water rates. Then the same councillor, in a new manifestation...
It's a supplementary question you're supposed to be asking, please. Not a lecture on history, thank you.
In a new...
Please,
in a new
manifestation, thank you.
In a new manifestation in Democratic Left, late 80s, early 90s... I'm
well aware of the history of Deputy Gilmore. I worked with him long enough. Would you mind asking your supplementary question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Supplementary question, thank you.
Can call it seriously.
I am very serious. This is a supplementary question for 1 minute. Thank you.
It's impossible to focus and to concentrate on an issue in a meaningful way. You know, when the various choruses from the government benches constantly try to throw you off.
Yeah, please.
Look,
please.
Deputy Stagg, I know that you're...
No, please. We've had enough of this, please.
Your thwarted political ambitions has a lot more to do with
Deputy Higgins, Deputy Higgins, through the chair, please.
You made your seat in 1980.
Deputy, I'm going to call an end to this if you don't please reply to.
In a new reincarnation, Democratic Left, the PAYE taxpayer whom we represent has already paid enough tax for local services and should not have to pay again. Fast forward to Deputy Eamon Gilmore, 2003 Labour spokesperson on the environment, who said,
I'm not interested in quotations.
Who said to the Fianna Fáil Minister of the day, by further introducing a measure...
Deputy, would you please ask your supplementary question? Thank you. You have 1 minute.
How can I ask my question?
You're nearly 3 minutes over.
When these hyenas over here, I would be finished.
Okay, we're 3 minutes over time, Deputy.
Come on. With respect.
What's your supplementary question?
You are supposed to protect my rights.
I am trying to protect you. But if you started addressing the...
Yes. The fact is that the baying hyenas in the Labour Party just put me off all the time. I just cannot... Now, can I just then, in a nutshell...
Yes.
Can I put it to you, Deputy Taoiseach? These are your words in 2003 to the Minister. By further introducing a measure which will make it legal for local authorities to refuse collections to households which have not paid, Minister Cullen is introducing a compulsory bill tax.
Thank you, Deputy.
The Labour Party...
You're over time now. No, that's the end of it. I call on the Taoiseach to reply. No, Deputy. No. No, please. Resume your seat, Deputy, please. Taoiseach to reply. Deputy, I asked you to resume your seat. Deputy, I asked you to resume. Deputy, would you please have some respect for the chair? Thank you.
This is February 2012, and there are 18,000 householders in this city who are having difficulty having their refuse collected. And there's a problem that has arisen following the arrangements that were made by the management of Dublin City Council. That's the problem that needs to be resolved. And Deputy Higgins, you should take your head out of the archives and get real about the... should get real... Should should get real about the problems that people have in the here and now. There is a problem in Dublin City in the here and now. That is the problem that the Minister for the Environment is dealing with. That's the problem that the government is dealing with. We have stated the approach that we're taking with it, and that's what we're going to concentrate on getting resolved, so that the people in this city can have their waste collected and a reasonable arrangement in place for the collection of the charges that apply to it.
Thank you, Tánaiste.